Welcome to Rock Solid, the Round Rock Business Leaders Podcast. Join your host, Bryan Eisenberg, as he explores the journeys of entrepreneurs and companies across Round Rock, Texas. From startups and nonprofits to large organizations, each guest shares their passion for doing business in this thriving community. Let's dive in.
Welcome to Rock Solid. I'm Bryan Eisenberg, and I'm here with my friend Kevin Koym from Tech Ranch. Kevin, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here with you, Bryan.
I mean, there's so much I want to explore today, but I want to start with one that's like starting right now. I know we're recording right before Startup Day here in Round Rock, and you're going to be doing a special networking event, this campfire networking. And you've been doing these campfire networking events for a long time. I want to explore a little bit about why this approach to networking, why it means so much to entrepreneurs and founders.
Well, especially being in this region where, I have family that goes all the way back to 1846. The thing that we've seen is communities build each other, right? Mm-hmm. If we want to support entrepreneurs, we need to have the base of the community to support each other. There's a story about my grandfather, my mother's father, as a cotton farmer here in Williamson County, that the cotton crop got destroyed 7 years in a row based on hail. And, how is it you get ahead? Like if you're in Jonah, Texas, and you have a small family, well, how do you take care? Well, the community, to make a long story short, the community came together.
Yep.
And in the chaos of what was happening in that space. My grandfather told me those stories about how the community would support each other. Mm-hmm. And years later, being an entrepreneur here in the Austin area, on just needing support because we didn't have venture capital, we didn't have a lot of entrepreneurial support type of tools, but you and I could work, side by side with each other.
Yep.
And 5 minutes of your insight at the right time in my business's history is worth tens of thousands of dollars. But instead of focusing on just like looking for that way of, spending money with each other, part of it is that we contribute to each other. And I come up with a formula about how to open up those conversations so that we can discover that 5 minutes of your
mm-hmm.
insight in my business's history or someone else's and create connections that then drive businesses forward. And then if we choose to do business beyond that little bit of insight that happens, we can. But most importantly, we're presencing what builds community. And through building community, we're supporting the entrepreneurs to take things to a much higher level.
Yeah, entrepreneurship can be quite lonely.
Yeah.
We've been there, even though I did it with my brother for so many years. It still can feel lonely. I mean, it's hard.
Well, it's especially, the part of it is a lot of people focus on financial capital. Mm-hmm. Hey, I'm going to go get an investor to give me money. But the truth is that a lot of times the investors are going to wait until you have your business going and you have to figure out how to build mm-hmm. it forward. And I say we replace that with social capital. Yep. Social capital is just the community, And then that other thing you're referring to about how lonely it is to build a business. Your employees as an entrepreneur don't understand, and you can't let your guard down a lot of times because they don't necessarily need to know or want to know that you're having difficulty with one client or another client, mm-hmm. but being able to connect with other entrepreneurs is really powerful. And so, there's something important about that, especially, being an entrepreneur can be lonely because it's so difficult. You have to constantly be presencing yourself. So connecting with other entrepreneurs is a fundamental way that I've been able to get ahead. And part of what I've seen in building community is this is how we can help each other in the simplest of ways.
Oh, absolutely.
Rock Solid is produced and recorded at Round Rock Studio. Located right here in Round Rock, our state-of-the-art studio is built for podcasters and creatives alike. We offer multiple professionally designed podcast sets, top-notch recording gear, and a full photography studio ready for any project. Whether you're launching a new podcast or upgrading your existing one, we can help with multi-camera recording, editing, and everything you need for success. Record with us at Round Rock Studio, your local podcasting partner.
We met at a community a little over about 20 years ago. We were talking about it earlier with my mentor, Roy Williams, and his wife, Penny. And she's got a famous line that when I think about what you do really like triggers me. And she said, you can do one of three things that that you can focus on. You can make money, you can make a name, or you can make an impact. And Tech Ranch has been ranked like number 3 for social impact.
Yeah, the whole reason I started TechCrunch was to drive what I call impact innovation, technology that solves some human need. And we were recognized in the top 3 social impact incubators over the last couple of years. The main thing about us is if we support the entrepreneurs that are focusing on, I call them the pioneers and the revolutionaries.
Very fitting for Williamson County.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the individuals that are really building a new world, right? What do the pioneers do? They're actually they set out to make the world a better place and to discover new ways of doing things and things like that. In olden times, that same thing is what I wanted to focus my energy on. How can we help the entrepreneurs that are making that impact? I call them transformational entrepreneurs, the pioneers, the revolutionary types. TechCrunch essentially does that. Now, we took the model that we started here in the Austin area and ended up taking it to the world, which has carried me to, 22 countries over the last 8 years alone. Yeah. The idea is the same thing I was talking about earlier about building community. Let's just connect people around the world. And through doing that, I actually say it this way. All the world's problems have already been solved. It's just a matter of connecting the entrepreneur with the solution.
Correct.
To the market with the problem. And so I have a number of different examples that kind of give the flavor of how, can we protect, as an example, from northern Mexico and Chihuahua, Mexico, there's a technology that can test for heart attacks up to 8 hours before the big event.
Wow.
It's an inexpensive technology, $2 per test. Whereas in the United States, we'd slap a $1,200 watch on someone and watch their heart beat that way. It's a really inexpensive. And when I started seeing these type of solutions available around the world, like where we can just by connecting the entrepreneur to a different market, we can solve a problem, but do it in a business way, and therefore a scalable way. It's really a powerful thing to think about. And so that all started here, inspired by my family's history all the way back to the 1800s.
Yeah, obviously, not only have you seen the growth of the area, but you've heard all the stories, I'm sure, from your family. And I know you've called Austin like a prototype city. There's so many things that they're doing well for the entrepreneurial community. Where do you think Round Rock fits inside there from what you've seen?
Well, obviously, since a lot of wealth has been created at places like Dell, there's a lot of base for really being able to do more of these type of projects. Because my family, my mom's side of the family is from Williamson County, I've wanted to see more access to entrepreneurship here. I'm excited to see what the chamber has been doing because I think it's been needed for a long time. I remember back in the some of the speeches I was giving in the area in the 2008 and 2009 timeframe, when the market dipped, and it was really hard because
I felt that one really badly. So believe me, I know that one.
Yeah, and we had engineers that lost their jobs.
Yeah,
not just. I mean, there's usually a lot of different people in a company that will lose their jobs. When the engineers lose their jobs, the engineers are like, "Hey, wait, what's happening here?" Part of the thing that I think is really important is as we go through some of the disruptions that are happening in the market and kind of the chaos that's going on in the world right now, it's important that we do everything we can to support our entrepreneurs. And I'm excited to see the activities especially over the last couple of years, led by the chamber, to really enliven that. And so it's exciting to see. Austin has had a longer history of that. I'm one of the drivers of that whole history, but it's needed to spread out even more. And I think the thing about it is it's not
especially because of the traffic.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be seen as Round Rock versus Austin. For me, since I've always thought of my family first in the Georgetown area, it shouldn't be thought of as either or. There's ways that we can play off the strengths of each place.
Absolutely. We were talking earlier, you've made an estimate that you've spoken to probably over 100,000 people about entrepreneurship and how, you just ran into somebody who said they became an entrepreneur because they heard you speak. I'd love to dive more into that story. And what are you telling people that are inspiring them like this?
So 100,000 entrepreneurs, I was reflecting over, I started this part of my career, this part of my journey in 2003. I've been a successful entrepreneur before that. I started a bunch of different companies, had the one of my customers was, I built the e-commerce engine behind Dell. So from $0 to $2 billion, the computers sold at Dell.com were sold on software that I wrote in my living room. So that, although that story sounds flashy, the path of entrepreneurship is not easy. And the thing that I've noticed is, there's a handful of things about how do we build resilient people? How do we build them so that they can go through entrepreneurship's not easy. There's stuff that an entrepreneur needs to know that a business person doesn't, right? They're both in business, but they're different profiles, especially, psychologically. Because entrepreneurs...
So the amount of risk that you're taking.
Yeah, you're taking risks. You're constantly, sometimes we don't know where the next step is going to take. And so... But these are the people who built the country. I mean, nothing against politicians or anything else. It's the risk takers that really I've recognized, I celebrated. Now, it's just by chance in my life that I became an entrepreneur because I didn't know about that. I grew up by U.S. standards, I grew up a poor kid. And I didn't know about how business was created and all that sort of stuff. And I got the opportunity of a lifetime stumbling accidentally into working for a Steve Jobs startup called Next.
Yep, I was going to dive into that a little later.
Yeah, I got really excited about the process, and for me, once I saw, especially there was a guy up in front of the room beating hand on fist on table, saying about we're going to change the world. I really bought into that idea, but the thing about it is when we look at who's really doing that, it's the entrepreneurs. So the idea, back to your question, is how can we support them? I've been speaking around the world about this, in that this idea of celebrating the individual and his or her motivations. Then you have a set of mechanics, revenue minus cost equals profit. You have to know that. You have to have structures, physical structures and legal structures to engage people in, and
facilitate things.
Yeah, facilitate that. And then this thing that I keep on coming back to, the community culture. I'm going to help you, you're going to help me, right? If you have those four elements, that was what produces a productive entrepreneurial ecosystem. Now, because one of the guys who got to really drive the entrepreneurial ecosystem of Austin, I'm one of the three, of my age group, one of three guys that, really built that. Part of the idea is once you see it working, and once you see wealth being created, not by some large organization, but by individuals. Yep. It's just natural that, wanting to carry that forward. And so, from here to Uzbekistan, I've gotten to evangelize this idea of entrepreneurship. And, how is it that we can support the community that then supports the individual? It's not an either or type of thing, nor should it be treated like that.
I'm going to dive into it a little sooner than I wanted, but you mentioned working with Steve Jobs. And of course, when anyone thinks of an entrepreneur, I think he's probably in the top 5 that most people will come up with in their head of top entrepreneurs. He wasn't the Steve Jobs that transformed Apple. He was still earlier on. But what are some of those lessons you saw even then that shape the way you help entrepreneurs today?
One of the things that, so I have, only 5 Steve stories. I was, I was in the first couple of hundred employees at that startup. The main thing about it is, the thing that I personally bought into is following a vision and just giving your life to it. And, both the stories that I got to see, because Steve had gotten fired from Apple and was really angry, but everything that I heard, and this is when I was really meldable, 20 years old, working at Next, and started as a campus rep and then worked as a system engineer once I got my degree. The main thing about it is to see that we were on this vision, this path, and that whole idea of articulating a vision and then giving oneself to it and having a group of people who are dedicated to that's a very, I think that's one of the most fundamental things to be human. And I don't think a lot of people realize that, because we have it in our culture in the United States, but we don't celebrate it in the way that we possibly could. And so that would be the first thing that I would actually say.
I want to dissect that a little bit,
Yeah.
because what I'm hearing, and this is your common thread, right? He was a brilliant storyteller who was on a mission, and he kept telling the story of what he was trying to do, even though it was possibly technically impossible. But he had everyone believing in the mission. And that story captured people, the stories we tell around the campfires, right? The stories that we can change the world.
It could just be as simple as, especially among a group of entrepreneurs that are, working in separate businesses, it could just be that one thing you say to your friend that you just see walking back into the office, supporting them just this much. Hey, I believe in your vision. That alone, that is so powerful. And it's like I was referring to earlier, there are a few things that the business person will know that the entrepreneur has to go through. And so part of it is, we have some really wonderful business people, and I'm not trying to knock that at all, but there is something special about how is it we can celebrate the individual but also celebrate him or her in the context of the community that is supporting that person. That alone. Okay, so at Next, obviously, here was Steve. He was broken. He was angry as I didn't realize at the time, because this is my first real job. I didn't realize how angry he was. I just thought, oh, that's just how people are. Oh, wait, this is work. This is what work
he's just
looks
passionate.
like.
Yeah.
Okay, well, yes, sir. Whatever we have to do. Okay, got it. The main thing about it is there was a recognition of genius there, but also the community of the company itself was very much in celebration of that. Without it being a cult, it was like it was separate. It was like this is a real pursuit.
Yep.
And that alone, I think, is one of the important things that I learned from watching Steve. Another thing that I want to say something about, there's this one photo of Steve sitting sitting in his house on a wooden floor on top of a meditation cushion right next to his stereo, and he says that sometimes all you need is a cup of tea, your music, and very simple things. So I didn't see that original photo until later on, like within a few years after Next. But it helped me understand something else, that a lot of times entrepreneurs give up a lot of the other trappings of things, because if you have this idea of the vision that you're giving your life to, then all the other things might fall away. Now, Steve famously didn't have a lot of furniture. He didn't have a lot of, not a lot of stuff, trappings around him at the time. But that's another thing to look at is, okay, what's really important to you? And what's really important? Is it all the stuff that's going to slow you down and maybe not allow you to invest as an entrepreneur? Or is it really, hey, these are the few things that I need? That photo is one of my favorite photos ever. I don't remember exactly all the details of it, but I got a copy of it, read the story about it, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's the man that I want to emulate that as if almost a mentor kind of way.
Yeah, well, you and I both have had these conversations on the side about pursuing nervous system health, right? And you mentioned that word resilience before, and if it's not probably one of the most important, besides obsession, which of course Steve Jobs was obsessed, but resilience is such an important factor for a great entrepreneur, right? They've got to be able to bounce back from things, because you're going to fail a lot, smack your face, feel like the elephant's sitting on your chest, like you're going to fail. And if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't be present for your company, you can't be present for your family, you can't be present for yourself. And you've been diving deep into it. And what are some of the things that you're finding that you're recommending to entrepreneurs to kind of, restore that resiliency for them?
So where this all started for me is I've been studying Japanese martial arts for about 30 years now. I've studied a martial art called Aikido for about 27 years. Aikido is about, resolving a conflict without necessarily having to hurt the other person.
Yep.
You have to resolve it in taking care of self. And in that, one of the things, like because of injuries, I've had to have surgery to put my arm back together after an accident happened on the mat, One of the fundamental things I learned in martial arts, like one of the most powerful practices in a martial art, is to learn how to heal. So I think of the practice of entrepreneurship and the practice of martial arts in a very similar kind of way, and especially Aikido, where you're not trying to just crush the other guy. You're actually trying to say, let's resolve this conflict. I'm going to take care of myself, and I'm going to go as hard as I need to say, no, let's not go forward with this. Part of what happened in that martial art practice was I was introduced to Zen meditation. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm Christian, and I've been, I was raised in the church and things like that. But in a way, Zen is not. People think of it as another religion, and that's not really right. It's not really right. Mm-hmm. It's a meditation practice, at least the way that I've taken it up. Yeah. And so one of the first things that helped me start to regulate my nervous system, like how do you, when you have the customer that is not paying his or her bill on time, or you have
just infuriating circumstances. Yes.
Like I had an employee that I was absolutely touched by that passed away, mm-hmm. and extremely difficult stuff to deal with. And how do you actually manage through that type of stuff? Meditation, among a lot of different things I've tried. I've actually did a count, and I tried 35 different ways of, cook your brain mm-hmm. kind of activity, all focused on helping myself to relax. Because and regulate my nervous system. Yeah. And because if you can do that, you can walk back into the difficult situation. You can handle the conflictual activity. It's just like in Aikido. In Aikido, you don't want to puff up, because then your body is stiff and stuck and all that sort of stuff. If you can relax, we say, if you can relax into the attack,
you can absorb that
energy. You have more
activities
that are possible. Same mm-hmm. thing about entrepreneurship. If you can, despite whatever the difficult situation is happening, if you can feel that moment of, that you might have felt in meditation, and it doesn't have to be any kind of special part of meditation. There are lots of different ways of looking at it. If you can relax into that, then you're going to have more options. And the best part about it is, for an entrepreneur that might not have a lot of money to spend on, fancy retreats mm-hmm. and things like that, meditation is something that you can start with just 5 minutes of sitting today. Straighten your back, sit on a chair like this, nothing fancy. 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Do it for 6 weeks.
There's even free apps. I mean,
it's just free apps. Time it for 5 minutes. Take 5 minutes. You deserve 5 minutes today, and you can find 5 minutes. And in 6 weeks, I promise you'll know what I'm pointing to. You might not have the experience of,
transcendence.
Yeah, transcendence or anything like that. And you'll probably be thinking about all sorts of stuff and wanting to make a list. But that alone is really powerful. And I found that part of what I'm personally wanting to share more about in my own walk of entrepreneurship is that type of stuff. I think that for whatever reason, in the businesses that I've chosen to do and the work that I've chosen to do and some of the life events that have happened in my life, I'm like, wow, okay, I'm glad that I've spent so much energy on resilience, mm-hmm. on that now I think that part of what I'm supposed to be sharing with the world is not just, my vision of technology and things like that and, international business, but also how do we take care of ourselves, especially with disruptions happening, like the number of jobs that are going to be lost to AI, it's insane. Right, it's insane. The number of things that are happening with the trade wars that are going on right now and how it's affecting small business. That's really difficult. There's all these different other things that we can talk about, like about how to work through the disruptions. But it starts with the self. It starts with how is it I can take this, my mm-hmm. most important, asset, myself, my body, and regulate. And I think that that's part of what we need to be doing as a community to support our entrepreneurs, to create even a deeper culture of that. It's like, hey, Bryan, how are you taking care of yourself? What are you going to do today? Eat right, mm-hmm. exercise, all that sort of stuff. Now there's other things on top of that we can add in that really give you a deeper sense of self and more capability to take care of the future.
Yeah. I mean, one of my big ones is, tomorrow I'm meeting a friend. We're going for a walk in nature. Like that's just one of the things that we do, and we schedule it, and just to having that time. Let's talk about some of those options because, like you said, your family's been here forever and a day. What are some of the favorite things and favorite places around here that you go to retreat, essentially?
I mean, for me, because I grew up, my uncle had a ranch. He's now passed away, but he's the Tech Ranch. His name comes off of a ranch that's pretty close to Florence, if you know where Florence is. And, just getting out into nature, that piece of land, I knew well enough that I could walk when there's no moon out and, without flashlight, walk through those 40 acres and the other 200 acres he had. So getting out into nature is number one thing that this part of the world, I think, my version of heaven looks like rolling hills, live oak trees and things like that. Stuff like that is probably the first thing I'd say. You see this around Lake Georgetown in the whole area there. There's a lot of the history that might not be as visible as, say, like on the East Coast, because we have a pioneer's history. We don't have this history of like big
structures and schools
and stuff like that. So finding out more about that type of activity. For me, since I have a little bit of native Texan blood, I've also looked deeper into some of the activities of who are the indigenous people of this area and what do they have to say about the springs and things like that. That's something kind of simple. Because I have German background, some of the German settlements that are in the area, like Wahlberg would be as an example, getting out and just having fun like that. To the downtown Round Rock and the coffee shop that I know has changed hands a number of times since the times that I used to go there a lot. That's there. And what they've done with the Georgetown Square. I remember, for those of y'all that don't know about Golds, I remember Mr. Gold himself and the first pair of shoes that my grandparents bought for me in the town square. Just getting out into the town square, going to that chocolate shop, going to one of the wine shops there, and having dinner. There's a lot of things that it's cool to know the history. Back 56 years ago when I was born, and then being in in that town square for now. The identity has been kept. It's just you've got more options now than you did back then. But a nod to the history of that area.
Awesome. Kevin, if people want to get in touch with you, learn more about, getting involved with Tech Ranch and learning more about becoming an entrepreneur, how would they reach out to you?
So the biggest thing would be go to our website, techranch.com, and there's a contact us form there. That's the easiest. I mean, people are always welcome to email me. The difficulty is, since I am dyslexic, the best is to get onto the website because then my team will pick things up. But I mean, if there's specific inquiries, you can send me an email at kevin@techranchaustin.com. That being said, the way to get into the path, especially to make sure that you have access to some of the tools, is to go to the contact us form on the website, techranch.com. And we have a virtual community that we'd like to get you involved in. There are a lot of different businesses that are taking advantage of some of our international connections, especially as trade lines are changing.
Yep.
Take advantage of that as well. You don't have to be at the early stage to take advantage of what we're doing. In fact, a lot of the companies that we're working with these days are at that middle stage. Now, that being said,
some more scale-ups.
Yeah, scale-ups. I will always love working with the two guys in the garage, or the woman or the man that's starting at the very early stages. We have a lot of content that's available on our website for those as well to just take advantage of some of the scar tissue that I have. I'd like to donate it to you, so you don't have to have so many difficulties.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kevin.
Yeah, thank you for this opportunity, Bryan. It's been great to be here with you today, as well as to get to know you for all these years.
Yep.